How did best you can tell, the resolution between the League, Players Association, and Deshaun Watson come out?
Well, it was a week ago right now that I was anticipating that appeals officer Peter Harvey would potentially drop the hammer on a full-year suspension, keeping Deshaun Watson from playing last Friday night in Jacksonville in the preseason opener. And it was right around this time, maybe an hour or two from now, that someone said to me, hey, they're talking settlement. Peter Harvey isn't going to rule, doesn't want to rule until the two sides have had a chance to work this out. And that was the first tangible sense we had that even at a time when the NFL had everything it needed, it had exactly the ammunition from Judge Robinson's ruling to impose whatever suspension it wanted to impose, that was when we backed off from thinking that a suspension was coming, something more than 6 games, much more than 6 games, and then it trickled into Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Now, along the way, we had the Friday night interview of Deshaun Watson with Aditi Kinkhabwala from the team hotel in Jacksonville, where he apologized to the women he impacted with his behavior, and it felt like an effort to throw an olive branch to the NFL to show that he was ready to concede. He was ready to accept responsibility. He was abandoning the talking points of I didn't harass anyone, I didn't disrespect anyone, I didn't assault anyone, and his lawyer saying all along that all the women who were accusing him of wrongdoing were lying, that they were backing off from that in the hopes of reaching some sort of an agreement so that he wouldn't be out for the entire year. And as the week went on, they finally got to a point where they found an acceptable middle ground. There's a lot of conspiracy theories about how they got to 11. I think it's very simple. The union was dug in at 10. The league was dug in at 12. And it's not like you can negotiate half of games. It's not like he shows up third quarter of the Week 13 game against the Texans. I mean, you just have to pick a number. And they settled on 11. And I think he acknowledged yesterday, and his willingness to pay the fine was part of the way to get him back on the field more quickly. Higher fine, less games. More games, lower fine. He was willing to pay basically half of what he made last year by not playing to get back after 11 games. So I think it was that simple. And for whatever reason, the league didn't want to issue a ruling, didn't want to invite a federal court battle, just wanted it to be over and move on.
So this is not my first rodeo, nor it is yours, sir. So normally when this happens, when the league and a player come to a settlement like this and the league gets sterner discipline than originally scheduled or announced, the player involved must admit wrongdoing, must say something along the lines of, I am sorry for what I did. I will address it. I will come back a better person, and I accept what I did. And Watson did accept responsibility in a written statement and did say he's going to come back a better person in a written statement and did say the exact opposite when a live microphone was put in front of him mere minutes later. What does the league do about that, do you think, Mike?
That's a great question. And for now, the league has said nothing about it. I would suspect that there were some 4-letter words uttered at 345 Park Avenue yesterday.
Not Park?
Frankly.
Not Park? Although
sure,
it could have ended in a K.
Not Park, not the address.
Right.
A K still involved is the last letter, but that's about it. I can't imagine they're happy with this. And, I've seen people push the notion on behalf of Deshaun Watson's representatives that this is like any other settlement. Nobody admits to wrongdoing in a settlement. Well, this isn't your standard civil settlement. Your standard civil settlement doesn't include an obligation to have an evaluation and treatment. How in the world is evaluation and treatment going to mean anything to Deshaun Watson? I've been trying to play out how this looks. He shows up for the evaluation, and he says, I didn't do anything wrong. Why am I even here? Treatment? What do you treat me for? I stand on my innocence. I don't need any treatment. I don't know how you even begin to comply with that aspect of this agreement if he refuses to abandon the notion that he did nothing wrong. And that's very troubling to me. And look, I'm all for people getting second chances, but you got to want your second chance. You got to acknowledge that you screwed up your first chance to qualify for a second chance. He's still stuck on, I didn't do anything. Well, then why did he agree to it? He agreed to it because he knew he was in checkmate, and this was his only way out. I just wonder if that's what the NFL anticipated when they agreed to this, And if they knew before yesterday at noon that this is how he was going to deal with it, would they have just pulled the offer, imposed the suspension, and told him, feel free if you want to continue to profess your innocence? We've found that you're not innocent. Judge Robinson, and that's what's weird about this, Rich. The union wanted the league to accept Judge Robinson's ruling. She found that he did it. She found that he did it. So how can they reject that now? That's what's amazing to me.
So can they up his suspension at some point? Like, is it possible that, you come on this show late October, early November, and I ask you, what's the update on this? And you're like, your sources say therapy didn't go very well and the league's thinking of keeping him out longer. I mean, is that possible? Can that happen?
I think it is possible, and that's something that your guy Shefty, my guy too, tweeted yesterday,
yes,
that if he doesn't comply, he doesn't get reinstated. He's got to comply. And will we ever know? I don't know. When he comes back, press conference, Mary Kay Cabot of the Cleveland Plain Dealer, who was very quick to pounce on his failure to accept responsibility yesterday. Great follow-up question from her. She's at the press conference. I think one of the first questions she asks is, do you still stand on your innocence after going through evaluation and treatment? Do you still stand on your innocence? And if he says yes, what was it all for? What was the point of it? And it will imply at that point pretty clearly the league didn't care. The league just wanted to get this over with, get him back on the field, and move forward. And if when he does come back instead and he's asked that question, he says, I regret what I said. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about how to interact with others, and I'm now equipped with the tools to avoid these kinds of problems in the future, then it worked. So that'll be the ultimate litmus test. Well, and the one litmus test before that is, does he even come back? Do they allow him to come back? And if they mean what they say, and he fails to accept responsibility and thus gets nothing out of evaluation and treatment, why would he be back at all? So this story isn't over yet, Rich, and it's entirely possible we get to December and we find out that the league has not agreed to reinstate Deshaun Watson. I don't know what happens at that point. I don't know what standing the union would have to create a federal case literally out of it, but it would probably be backed up by some records from whoever they hire to do this evaluation and treatment that it was pointless because he just sat there over and over again saying, I never harassed anyone, I never assaulted anyone, I never disrespected anyone.
Yeah, I guess it depends on whatever the appointed Dr. Melfi has to say, I mean, we have no idea that's down the road. Is it possible, last one for you on the subject matter.
You went Dr. Melfi?
I did. I went a little Sopranos. I went a little Sopranos on you. Put your legal hat on here, counselor. Is it possible he still has some sort of exposure? He's been told he's had some sort of, I guess it's the wrong word, that he has some sort of legal problem if he accepts responsibility through his verbal response yesterday, because there's one last lawsuit hanging out there. Is that possible?
That's the case. Hey, Rich, if that's the case, great point. Excellent observation, because he still has one case left, and anything you say can and will be used against you. The admissions of a party opponent are always admissible in court. It's not hearsay if it's said by the person who's either doing the suing or who has been sued. Excellent point. Then just don't say anything. Just don't say anything. Why are you saying anything? See, they're trying to thread this needle where he says enough to placate the NFL and get them to do the settlement, but then he reserves the right to say I didn't do anything. There was no reason to talk yesterday, and I'm not entirely sure the Browns knew he was going to say what he said when they put him in front of a microphone, but sometimes the best PR is no PR. Why not just let the press release and the statement that was tweeted by the Browns from Deshaun Watson, why not let that stand? And let's see how it goes over. Let's see if people are clamoring. We need to hear from Deshaun Watson. Maybe we wouldn't have said we need to hear from him. Maybe we would have understood there's a reason why he's not talking. Instead, they put him out there and Andrew Berry, the GM, and the Haslams. And I just think that whole exercise made everyone look worse, made the situation worse, and it would have been far better to just say nothing and rely on the written document.